Chief Whip of the Federation, votes and proceedings. Page 4277. Page 4278. Page 4279. Distinguished Senator Tolu Odebi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Tolu Odebi. I represent the good people of Ogun West. Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for the adoption of the votes and proceedings for Tuesday, the 26th of April, 2022. I so move.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Degi Obiyabrokuma.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Degi Erimiem. I represent Bayelsa East Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion, assembly moved by my brother, Senator Tolu Odebi, that the votes and proceedings of 26 April 2022 be adopted. I so second.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 26th day of April 2022 be approved, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 26th day of April 2022 is hereby approved. Distinguished colleagues, letter from distinguished Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Dambaba, Sokoto South Senatorial District, Senate Deputy Minority Whip. Please, Finance, please, take your seats. His Excellency, the President of the Senate, change of political party. I write to formally inform you and my distinguished colleagues of my decision to join the All Progressives Congress, APC, from the People's Democratic Party, PDP. My decision is anchored on the continuing and multifaceted crises that have bedeviled the PDP, especially at the zonal level, which has created not only credibility problems, but has undermined party discipline, cohesion, and focus. The situation at the state level has not helped matters either, as depicted by lack of political sanity, focus, and credible leadership. I have in APC the political ideology in consonance with my personal political philosophy. This ideology also seems best suited to meet the expectations and aspirations of my constituents. While thanking you, Mr. President, please accept the assurance of my highest consideration Signed, Senator Ibrahim Abdullah Dambaba. Distinguished colleagues, the Senator Chief Whip. Let's finish with one before me, before I take yours. So there's no way you can miss this. You don't need to hurry. The gate will not be closed now. The door will remain open. Don't worry. Let's calm down. Just hold on. Chief Whip, Minority Whip, just calm down. This door is not going to be shut. I just want to, on behalf of all of us, congratulate the distinguished Senator Ibrahim Dambaba for taking the right decision at the right time. And we are happy to have you. And I want to assure you that you are in the right place. It's time for all Nigerians to come together to work for the development of our country. Partisanship, we may from time to time express, but statesmanship is extremely necessary for all of us in leadership positions. And I want to also assure you that you won't miss anything. You won't miss anything by moving from that political party. Thank God the wreckage did not hurt you. At least you were able to come out, and you can see how your immediate boss, the former immediate boss, the Minority Whip, is struggling to also hand in his letter. But I would rather, instead of collecting your letter today, I would rather allow you to have a statement to make, at least something that you will leave them with as a food for thought. So once again, you are welcome and congratulations. The Minority Whip, point of order.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, mine is a personal explanation, and Mr. President, what Dambaba has said and alluded to.
I want you to cite the order. Personal explanation. But I want you to read all of it. Read all of it.
President, Mr. President, I just want to, 42, sir.
No, I want, yes, granted, but read all of it. Yeah, read all of it. No. You know, Minority Whip, you have been given the opportunity to come under Order 42 as you requested. But I'm asking you to read what Order 42 says to the hearing of all of us.
Yes, Mr. President, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought before, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted
In advance.
in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is the exigency of the time that has been.
No. Let me emphasize. You will still speak. I'm more particularly concerned with that last sentence. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. You know, I don't want you to, you will not suffer any injury here. You haven't, but I will still allow you to make your remarks on this. So go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, my immediate former deputy minority whip has alluded to the fact that there are crises in the northwest region of the PDP, and has also said that there is a crisis in his state. I want to state that there are no crises in the PDP in the northwest. So his might be personal, but otherwise there are no. I just want the public and everybody and Nigerians to know that there is no crisis in the PDP in the northwest.
Okay, so that's all you have to say.
Yes, I want the Senate to take note of that.
Are you for northwest?
And
no, it's all right. It's all right. I think you have that privilege of saying what you've said, but at the risk of joining you in this controversy, if someone who represents a senatorial district in Sokoto State, a senator, a distinguished senator, stands up here in this chamber and says in his place, this is the situation. An FCT senator will say, no, it doesn't exist. I think there is a question to be asked whether it is you that know better or him that represents that senatorial district. But by the way, you should expect more. You should expect more of this. Point of order, the distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Ekwunife Iyom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Uche Lilian Ekwunife Iyom, Ifekoledo of Ukpo. I come from Anambra State. I represent Anambra Central. Mr. President, I'm coming under point of order, constitutional order, section 68 of 1999 Constitution as altered. Mr. President, let me take you to subsection G, based on the fact that I can't say former, our deputy minority whip is intending to defect to APC side, that side, Distinguish. No, just listen, please. Just listen. You will still talk, but I want to correct an impression. He is not intending. He has moved. I read his letter. So the earlier you understand this and accept it, the better for you. Go ahead. Mr. President, now that he has decided to move to the other side, he has to vacate his seat immediately based on the constitutional provision on the fact that once you move from the party that brought you into an office, you have to relinquish that particular position. Mr. President, let me take you to section 68, subsection G. Being a person whose election to the House was sponsored by a political party, he becomes a member of another political party before the expiration of the period for which that House was elected, provided that this membership of that latter political party is not as a result of a division in the political party of which he was previously a member of a merger or two or more political parties or factions, by one of which he was previously
previously sponsored, he has to vacate the office. Mr. President, he...
Okay. Allow me rule. You are not be recorded, please. Just allow me rule. Allow me rule. You see, no, you are finished. No. At this point is, excuse me, please. At this point is my judgment that you have finished your presentation. And no, I judge it that you have finished. No, I'm not allowing you to go any further. I have to rule. I'm supposed to rule. You raise a point of order. You raise a point of order. It's not for you to rule. No. Can you please sit down? Sir, I'm not giving you any protection here. Just listen. The Sungu Senator Uche Lilian Ekunife. Thank you very much for your constitutional point of order. And it's an opportunity for me to rule. But before I rule, I want to advise you that some of these things you have said should not be recorded. My fear is one day you will stand up in that place and say you want to move to this side. And all those things you have said, oh, yes. But all these things you have said may come back to haunt. So that's my advice. You don't have to take that advice. On the issue of 66G or 66 whatever, 68G, you see, we are at liberty as elected representatives of the people when our parties are torn into pieces, when there are factions, when they are in such irredeemable and destructive crises like the PDPs. We are free to leave, to take our leave, and especially Senator Adambaba, to his credit, worked so hard to help stabilize PDP, take away PDP from the crisis, but it is irredeemable. And therefore, just allow me rule. I rule you out of order completely. Thank you. Minority whip. You know, my advice, only two of you are seated on this side. You want to make up for this number by making noise. I will advise that we listen, please, to others. So I have another letter to read. Thank you. Another letter. This one is all for someone decamping. Letter from the Sungu Senator Ibukule Amosun, CON FCA. Our dear Senate President, notification and invitation to the formal declaration to contest for the office of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria under the All Progressives Congress, APC. I bring warm greetings from my family, my constituents, the entire people of Ogun State, and my support groups across Nigeria. It is with the greatest respect that I write to notify you and my distinguished colleagues of my intention to contest for the office of President of our dear country, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and to respectfully invite you and my distinguished colleagues to the formal declaration ceremony. I have been blessed by God to serve as Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria between 2003 and 2007, and as a two-term governor of Ogun State between 2011 and 2019. I've also had the privilege to be elected a second time
to the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2019, where I currently serve the good people of Ogun Central Senatorial District. My varied experience in private and public life has imbued me with the requisite insights, experiences, and network of relationships adequate to provide a leadership that will galvanize our dear country to achieve her manifest destiny as leader in Africa and of the black race. I will be honored with your esteemed presence and that of my distinguished colleagues at the declaration event, which is scheduled as follows. Date, Thursday, 5th May 2022. Time, 11 a.m. Venue, Sheikh Musa Yaradua Center, CBD, Abuja, FCT. I seek the prayers of all of you for a successful declaration ceremony, victory at the party primaries, and the 2023 presidential election by the grace of God. Please accept the assurance of my highest regard. Yours sincerely, Senator Ibikule Amosu, CON, FCA, Ogun Central Senatorial District, Chairman, Senate Committee on Capital Markets. Congratulations, my brother. Petitions? Any petitions? Leader of the Senate. Point of order, distinguished Senator Dodgers Anayo Okorocha.
Mr. President, I rise to speak on Order 42, personal explanation. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Owele Anayo Rochas Okrocha. I'm from Imo State and I represent the people of Imo West. I speak with heart full of pains on the ugly incident that led to the loss of 110 lives in Abeze, Imo State, arising from a fire incident that killed 110 souls in a refinery, a local refinery business. Mr. President of the Senate, Senate President, sir, I said this to formally notify you and my colleagues that many families are in pains in Imo State, and Imo State has been thrown into a mourning mood because of this ugly incident. Many may argue, as they have said, that it was a business of bunkering. But, Mr. President, life is involved. It is for this reason that I want to appeal to my colleagues to see reason, to show sympathy, especially to these families, and most of them who are breadwinners to their family. It's also a clarion call on the federal government of Nigeria to take a second look about artisan modular refinery. If young men and women have found a local technology in refining products, they should be so encouraged by making this part of our laws. And instead of hiding and doing it illegally, they can be empowered to do it legally. For many years now, since the inception of this country, we produce oil that we cannot refine. and we still import petroleum products. The activities of these young men and women is simply an indicator there's a lacuna, there's a space that must be filled, and that's the space of refining our product ourselves. Mr. Senate President, it will be my pleasure that in this information that you can show your fatherly love and care by requesting the Ministry of Humanitarian Services on your own, not as a motion, to see what they can do to help the families so concerned. Mr. President, I so submit. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, distinguished Senator Rochas Okorocha, for the information. And even though you didn't ask, but I think we'll observe 1 minute silence in honor of those who lost their lives. But let me also re-echo one or two sentiments you've expressed. As a country blessed with petroleum resources, we must ensure that we refine our crude. It has been a long, tortuous journey so far that we have not been able to do that successfully, even after establishment of about 3 or 4 refineries. And of course, we are hopeful that the Dangote refinery, with a capacity of 650,000 liters per day, will be commissioned sometimes before the end of this year. But that is something that we have to work so hard to expand. We cannot, in any true sense and in a practical way, benefit better from our the oil and gas resources we have in Nigeria if we don't add the value of refining it. And of course, we know what it means as of today. Even though oil, the crude, sells for higher, but because we have to import the refined products, the increase in price at the international market does not seem to confer any advantage to our country. So that speaks volumes that we have to refine our products, petroleum products in Nigeria, if we have to enjoy the benefits of having an endowment like that. And for Nigerians who get engaged and involved in this kind of illegal refining activities, I think government would have to take action. It's for government to come to a decision on how we should be able to deal with these illegal activities. On one hand, we may encourage private participation. In fact, that is the best way to go. But illegal refining, again, at the moment, is causing a lot of damage to our country. So it's a very dicey situation, but we have to utilize the ingenuity of our citizens, those who are creative and innovative, but in a very much regulated way, so that we don't experience this kind of disasters. With this, let's observe a minute's silence in honor of those that lost their lives in the accident. Thank you.
May the souls of our departed compatriots rest in perfect peace. Amen. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Ekunife Iyong on the Federal Medical Center Umuawulu Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Leader, before I do that, let me try a guess here. Minority Whip, this side apparently is so scanty. Is it because screening for the governorship or National Assembly? Okay, it's all right. At least we better explain this for the public to understand. So, but I also believe that some of you are consulting with their constituents they want to decamp.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, actually, why this our side and the seats are empty from the PDP side is because the nationwide we're going through screening for National Assembly and the various positions, including the state assemblies and governorship. So everybody's at his constituency carrying out the screening. But for me, because I'm here in the FCT, I'm doing mine, and their number one also was moved to the FCT. So the two of us have gotten permission to stay here till 2 o'clock before we can go back for screening.
Okay, that's very kind of you. Wish you very successful screening. Leader of the Senate. Clerk of the Senate, sorry, Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Medical Center Umuawulu Establishment Bill 2022, SB 881, first reading.
Federal Medical Center Umuawulu Establishment Bill 2022, SB 881, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of the distinguished Senator Oji Ozokalu on the Federal College of Agriculture, Isuzochi, Abia State Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal College of Agriculture, Isuzochi, Abia State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 987, first reading.
Federal College of Agriculture, Isuzochi, Abia State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 987, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Vigilante Group of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Vigilante Group of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2022, HB 437, first reading.
Vigilante Group of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2022, HB 437, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of the distinguished Senator Jibrin Issa on the National Cashew Production and Research Institute, IDA, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, we wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Cashew Production and Research Institute, IDA, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 1000, first reading.
National Cashew Production and Research Institute, IDA, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022 SB 1000, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Francis Ali Makhaina on the National Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Warake, Edo State Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, may we invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Warake, Edo State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 1001, first reading.
National Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Warake, Edo State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 1001, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name on the recommittal of the following bills to the Committee of the Whole. They are 1, Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria Bill 2022, and 2, Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to read the motion.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is a recommittal of bills to the Committee of the Whole. The Senate recalls that the following bills were passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives and were transmitted to the Clerk of the National Assembly for onward to the President, for onward transmission to the President Commander-in-Chief for his assent. The bills are 1, Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria, and 2, Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo. Observe that some fundamental issues which require fresh legislative action by both chambers of the National Assembly emerged after a critical analysis of the bills by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief. The Senate is aware that a technical committee of the Senate and the House of Representatives and Directors of Legal Services of the National Assembly met and worked on the 2 bills. Relying on our Order 1B and Order 52.6 of the Senate Standing Order 2022 as amended, I accordingly resolved to rescind the Senate accordingly resolved to rescind its decision on the bills as passed and recommit same to the Committee on the Whole for reconsideration and passage. I so submit, Mr. President.
Madam Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion as moved by the Senate leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, if there is no comment, those in favor of the Senate resolution to Committee of the Whole to consider the report say aye. Those against saying the ayes have it. We start the Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria Bill. Those in favor of Clause 1, Clause 2, retain, Clause 3, retain, Clause 4, financial provisions, retain, and Clause 5, the registrar and the register, retained. That those clauses remain part of the bill, say aye. Those against say nay. Clause 6 is on page 6. Clause 6 is on page 6, publication of the register. Those who were at Clause 6, Clause 7, Clause 8, approval of qualifications and training institutions on page 8, Clause 9, and Clause 10
On page 10, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at clause 11. Clause 11 on page 12. Professional discipline. Clause 12, professional misconduct. Clause 13. Clause 14. Offenses and penalties on page 15. And clause 15, proof of validity of certificate on page 16. Stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those in favor at clause 17, regulations, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those in favor at the interpretation on page 18, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the short title, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the schedules 1 and 2, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the explanatory memorandum on page 16, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the long title, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. We go to the second report, Federal University of Agriculture, Jalingo. Those who are at clause 1, clause 2, constitution and principal officers of the university. Clause 3, powers of the university and their exercise. Clause 4, clause 5. Those in favor that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 6 is on page 5, composition of the council. Those who are at clause 6, clause 7, clause 8, functions of the Senate, clause 9, functions of the Vice Chancellor, and clause 10, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the clause 11, mode of exercising power to make statutes on page 9, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, clause 15, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those in favor that clause 16 on page 13, procedures for staff discipline, clause 17, clause 18, removal of examiners, clause 19, and clause 20, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at clause 21 on page 16, a restriction on disposal of land by university, clause 22, clause 23, clause 24, clause 25, and clause 26, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those in favor of the interpretation on page 18, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the short title, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the schedules 1 and 2, stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the explanatory memorandum on page 34, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who are at the long title on page 1, stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. Yes, Senator Bolana Allah.
Just a little observation. Sorry to take you back on clause 3 of the Counseling Practitioners Bill, sir. If you look at clause 3, it may not be elegant enough for us to say be charged with the responsibility for policy making. The legal thing should be, it should be charged with the responsibility for policy formulation. That's the acceptable practice, sir. That's just the amendment. If it's okay with the Senate.
let's deal with the first one first. What is the difference between policy making and policy formulation?
Well, they are distinct and distinguishable, sir. If you charge an authority with policy making, it relates to only those issues that are directly connected with the office. But when the operation of the law itself requires that certain things be done, they are limited. So we say policy formulation. That's the accepted drafting procedure. That's the difference.
I have to be more confused. Any alternative view? Leader.
I'm not a lawyer, sir. Therefore, I find myself in a very shaky ground. For me, it doesn't make a difference. But if he himself is a professional, thinks that, for elegance purposes, I think it doesn't make any harm if we adopt the position he has advocated. Thank you.
My only concern is we should be consistent. What have we been passing before? Where is the evidence? Because we just need to be consistent. If we have been using formulation, we'll go back to formulation. If we have been using policy making, then we remain with that. Okay, Secretariat, where's the clerk? Please look for a bill passed, a similar bill, where issue of policy, either making or formulation is an, please, before we finalize, this okay, we'll pass it with this amendment, but if what we have been approving is making, we'll revert to making so that we remain consistent. Because to me, whether formulation or making, it doesn't mean any different, really. Okay, so we have to pass this one now again. The distinguished colleagues, we have to pass 3 again in the Act to establish the Counseling Practitioners Council. Those in favor that clause 3 as amended stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay, the ayes have it. Okay, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that the chair reports progress. I so move.
Yeah. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the chair reports progress.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay, the ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 and 2 as recommended, clauses 1 and 2 as recommended, clause 3 as amended, clause 4 to 17 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules 1 and 2 as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole also considered the Federal University of Agriculture Jalingo Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. Clause 1 to 26 as recommended. Interpretation as recommended. Short title as recommended. Schedules 1 and 2 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the committee of the whole? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that these bills be read the third time. I so move.
Minority.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this bill be now read a third time. I so second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion that these two bills be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria, charged with the responsibility of advancing the study, training, and practice of counseling profession and for related matters, 2022, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, Jalingo, and for related matters, 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Counseling Practitioners Council of Nigeria, charged with the responsibility of advancing the study, training, and practice of counseling profession, and for related matters, 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. A bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture, Jalingo, and for related matters, 2022, third reading taken, and this bill is also passed. Congratulations, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the National Hajj Commission Act Amendment Bill 2022. That is Senate Bill 902. The two senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this great chamber on Tuesday, 12th April 2022. Mr. President, we wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Dambaba to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Dambaba.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Dambaba, and I represent Sokoto South Senatorial District of APC extraction.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last.
Mr. President, sir, I rise to move the lead debate on the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria Amendment Bill 2022, SB 982. Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on the general principles of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria Act Amendment Bill 2022. This bill was read for the first time on Wednesday, 13th April 2022. This bill, among other reasons, seeks to restrict the activities of the Commission to its regulatory and coordinating functions, specifically as it relates to airlifting or transportation of Muslim pilgrims from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia for the purpose of performing the religious obligation of Hajj and Umrah. The bill also seeks to prohibit the use of funds accruing to the Hajj savings schemes for the purposes other than intended or contemplated by the National Assembly under the Principal Act. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as you are all aware, the Hajj savings scheme was introduced under the Principal Act for the primary benefit of intending pilgrims who subscribed and contributed to the scheme. Unfortunately, as you will see in the course of this debate, the operationalization of the scheme is today trailed by so many controversies and challenges that, if not addressed through the proposed amendment, may lead to the collapse of the scheme. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, an institution established under a law is designed to work within approved parameters and not beyond. The law is there to serve a purpose, and that purpose must be achieved, otherwise chaos will ensue. It is noteworthy that the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria has regulatory and coordinating powers relating to the airlifting or transportation of Muslim pilgrims from Nigeria to Saudi Arabia for the purpose of performing the religious obligation of Hajj and Umrah. These powers, however, do not contemplate direct engagement or involvement in the airlifting or transportation of pilgrims. Such activities are to be carried out by licensed travel agencies, hence the provision for registration and issuance of licenses to travel agencies for the purposes of all travel arrangements pursuant to Section 16 of the Principal Act. Furthermore, the Hajj Savings Scheme was set up under the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria Establishment Act to cater for intended pilgrims' welfare. The utilization of the funds was meant to be for the sole purpose of welfare of intending pilgrims. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, sadly, the intendment of the Principal Act is now being honored in breach than in observance. It is disturbing to bring to the attention of this hallowed chamber that currently the Commission engages in the warehousing of funds accruing to the Hajj Savings Scheme in commercial banks to yield profit and to be shared among stakeholders, for which reason a sharing formula has been adopted in spite of the remuneration of staff as stipulated by the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission. It is consequent upon the above aberration that the Senate is called upon to amend the Principal Act to prohibit the Commission from warehousing of such funds accruing to Hajj savings schemes in any commercial bank in Nigeria or elsewhere, except with the Central Bank of Nigeria. The proposed amendment will ultimately checkmate the activities of the Commission and ensure that funds are utilized as contemplated under the Principal Act. Furthermore, the bill intends to prohibit the Commission from disbursement of funds accruing to the Hajj Savings Scheme for its operational activities, as the Principal Act has made ample provisions for the funding of its operations. This bill seeks also to penalize any person found liable upon conviction for misappropriating or diverting funds accruing to the Hajj Savings Scheme. By and large, the bill has put in place a credible framework for the constitution of a board of trustees for the management of funds accruing to the Hajj Savings Scheme as contemplated under the Principal Act. In terms of the structure, the bill comprises of 8 major amendments affecting sections 4, 7, 11, 12, 16, and 25 of the Principal Act as follows. Section 4 amends the Principal Act by inserting a new subsection 2 immediately after the existing subsection 1. Section 7 amends the Principal Act by substituting a new subsection 7. Sorry. Section 11 renumbers and deletes some words in Section 11 of the Principal Act. Section 25, Section 16 amends Section 16 amends the section of the Principal Act by deleting the words without assigning any reason therefore in line 3 of subsection 3 and inserting new subsection 4, 5, 6, and 7 immediately after existing subsection 3. Section 25 amends the Principal Act by inserting the interpretation of the words board and the 6 geopolitical zones. Elsewhere, Mr. President, in Malaysia, the Malaysian Hajj Savings and Investment Scheme known as Taban Hajj is labeled as one of the most efficient and effective Hajj management scheme in the Muslim world. Currently, the Hajj Savings Scheme of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria only favors the wealthy class vis-a-vis lower and middle class. In a 2012 research conducted through survey method by Ibrahim Ali Al-Kali, who was a research student with the International Islamic University of Malaysia, found that the current payment system employed by the Commission needs restructuring and adjustment in order to help the vast majority of Nigerian Muslim population. If the proposed amendment is successful, the Commission will be mandated to emulate a similar savings and investment method as adopted in Malaysia called Tabang Hajj in order to help the vast majority of Nigerian Muslim population. In compliance, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, with Order 76, subsection 3 of the Senate Standing Order 2015 as amended, a financial compendium showing the financial implication of the bill on the Treasury of the federal government is here to attach for your kind consideration. Mr. President, sir, distinguished colleagues, the bill, if passed, will provide clarity on the regulatory functions of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria by curtailing its arbitrary use of powers in the airlifting and transportation of pilgrims, safeguarding the funds which pilgrims contribute to the Hajj Savings Scheme so as to ensure the ultimate deployment of the funds and create an opportunity for judicial review for aggrieved prospective licensees, amongst other compelling reasons. Thank you, Mr. President, for your kind attention.
Distinguished Senator Muhammad Adamu.
President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Muhammad Adamu Alero, representing Kebbi Central. Mr. President, I rise to second the bill ably sponsored by Senator Ibrahim Tambaba for two reasons. Number one, at the Senate, I had the opportunity of chairing an ad hoc committee on the activities of Hajj Commission. And in our report, we made it very clear that funds that are collected from pilgrims should not be used by the Commission. Rather, it should be kept in an account that will accrue interest, and the interest should be used to provide welfare for the intending pilgrims. We discovered that funds have been diverted by the Commission, and we made recommendations, far-reaching recommendations. Unfortunately, the report
could not be approved by the Senate because of certain interest. We even had trouble with Saudi Arabia. We spoke to several travel agents, service providers, and many people that are connected with Hajj activities in Saudi Arabia. And we discovered a lot of aberrations. So, Mr. President, I'm in support of the provisions of this bill where money should not be kept in a bank that will yield interest, and that money will be used by the Commission. Instead, any interest that accrued from that money should be utilized by the Commission to improve the welfare of the pilgrims. In a situation where the Commission is expected to provide catering services, accommodation, transportation, and other logistics, such money should be used for this purpose instead of being shared by the members of the Commission. I think it is an offense. It is even criminal, Mr. President, for the national commissioners to be using that money to, take care of their welfare. The money is meant for the welfare of the pilgrims, not the commissioners that are being paid salary by federal government. We normally approve their budget every year, and their remuneration is specified by Salaries and Incomes and Wages Commission. I don't see why they should start sharing money that came from the pilgrims. So we should stop it, and this is a very good legislation. It will improve transparency in the management of the funds meant for the Hajj Commission. And I urge my colleague, Mr. President, to support this. It will go a long way in providing relief to our pilgrims. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Abdullahi Gobir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. I stand to support this very important bill from my colleague from APC, Sokoto South, Ibrahim Ambaba Dambua. You see, the simple reason is this. There is fundamental difference between a commission, that is regulatory commission, and also a travel agency. If they restrict themselves to their own function as a commission, as a regulatory body, then there will be quality of service in the airlifting of pilgrims and so many other things that the pilgrims would benefit from. But the way it is now, if you are a judge and also a criminal, then that means you cannot actually prosecute yourself. And therefore, the fundamental issue here is that they should restrict themselves to their own function of regulating the system. Otherwise, there is going to be a problem. What I think they should be doing, which is actually as per the amendment, if there is any problem with the agency, if it is reported to them, then they will call that agency to order and then advise them of what to do so that things can be improved. But the way it is now, if they are the ones lifting, if they are the ones also giving the accommodation, if they are the ones also giving transportation, then certainly there is going to be a problem. So I think this is very fundamental. We have to look at these amendments and then go ahead with the amendments. So I therefore support this one, and I want every member here to support this so that at the end of the day in future, we should be able to reduce even the amount of money our poor pilgrims are paying to go and perform their third pillar. Because it's very fundamental, otherwise it's going to be a problem. The money that is being saved, interests are being accrued, and we should use that money. The income. So we should use that money from the income to actually reduce even the prices of going to Hajj. So I support this one, and I want everybody to support it. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadejia.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ibrahim Hassan Hadejia, Jigawa Northeast. Mr. President, in rising to support this amendment being proposed by distinguished Senator Dambaba, I would like to say that having gone through the proposed amendment, I hope that an opportunity will be given to expand the scope, as I don't even think the amendments are far-reaching. Mr. President, outside the contributory Hajj scheme being run by the National Hajj Commission, the debate also spoke about transportation. But there's very little in the way of a detailed arrangement or detailed clauses apart from licensing of travel agents that seem to actually have any effect on this. Mr. President, from experience, I would like to say that even beyond this, the Hajj Commission really oversteps its bounds when it comes to regulation of Hajj. I recall back in 2003, the Jigawa state government actually invited
the Senator Leko Mustafa and Senator Tolu Odebi, please. That president is also ours. You are not.
Thank you, Mr. President. I said back in about 2003, officials of the Tabung Haji organization, which is the Malaysian contributory Hajj organ that is more like an independent bank, was in Jigawa State, where they helped us organize a Hajj savings scheme and actually helped us organize a separate Hajj arrangement from the National Hajj Commission arrangement, which involved about 2 plane loads of passengers numbering about 300 that we chartered aircraft for, took to Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks, kept them in hotels, beautiful, comfortable environment, and they came back way before our Hajj, our general Hajj pilgrims. We intended to expand that. The differential then, Mr. President, even after we bought foreign exchange at the unofficial rate, was barely about 7.5%. And by our calculation then, if you expanded it to about 10 planes, you'll probably bring it down to well below what the Hajj Commission was charging. But subsequently, next year, it was frustrated by the Hajj Commission. So I'm saying this, Mr. President, to learn that most of the things that the Hajj Commission is doing, the overbearing influence they have over these operations, goes beyond supervision. They have doubled into hiring accommodation for pilgrims in Medina. They are always clashing with the state Hajj commissions, and some of these state Hajj commissions are up and doing when it comes to organizing Hajj. In Jigawa, we were also the first state to provide feeding for pilgrims as an experiment, before it was now being taken over by the Hajj Commission, and I believe they also now have almost direct control on that. Mr. President, there's no country in the world where a Hajj Commission directly gets involved in the logistics and operations of Hajj like in Nigeria. Indonesia, which has maybe 5-6 times the number of pilgrims we have, you have a choice. You have packages, you choose what you can afford, so it's not just one size fits all. You pay 2.5 million. Nobody says you have to pay 2.5 million for everybody. You can have a package for 1.8 million or 1.5 million. But by the nature of the way the Hajj Commission operates, it has complete control over operations, and it loads it over and above the State Hajj Commission. So my prayer is that I hope that when it comes to the public hearing, we'll try to expand this amendment to also cover these issues that go in the way of hindering successful, smooth Hajj operation in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Bala Ibn Allah.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. First, let me put on record, I'm not opposing this bill, but I am in difficulty to understand whether the necessary intendment of the mover or of the sponsor of this bill can be achieved by the provision of the law as it is, and then the argument advance in respect of this law. On one breath, we have agreed that certain funds are kept as savings for the purpose of instrumental payment and meeting the Hajj threshold with some level of ease. We have equally agreed that those funds used to be warehoused in commercial banks for the purpose of getting profit. We are not in dispute about that one. Now, in the argument, it says those funds should no more be taken to the commercial bank and they should be taken to the Central Bank of Nigeria. It means those funds will not be interest yielding. So therefore, the primary purpose of encouraging people to get involved in this scheme is defeated. So my concern is this. The argument again is that Hajj Commission should be barred from using these funds for the purpose of administration. But again, if you look at the argument of distinguished Senator Adamu Aleru, he is of the opinion that those interests that accrued from this saving should be used strictly for the purpose of improving the welfare of this pilgrim. The question to ask is who is to use them for the purpose of this welfare? What is the authority charged with that responsibility? So while not opposing this bill, if you carefully look at it, it seems to present two insoluble conundrums. And I think that at the public hearing, there may be need for us to understand that the primary purpose of this bill is to ensure that Hajj Commission does not dip its hand in the interest or the sharing formula of the interest that accrues to this fund. But to say that that fund should be taken to central bank where it will not be an interest yielding account, it may not necessarily be feasible. So I think that at the public hearing, whichever committee that this matter is going to be referred to should do whatever is humanly possible to bring a bill that will reflect the necessary intendment of the sponsor of this bill. The bill is good, it's timely, and then it will be irresponsible if we do not intervene in making sure that corrupt practices that exist in every facet of our national life is nipped in the bud. And I think this is one good attempt at that. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Those who vote that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria Act to restrict the activities of the Commission to its regulatory and coordinating functions as it relates to the conduct and operation of Hajj and Umrah in Nigeria, prohibit the use of funds accruing to the Hajj savings schemes, provide for comprehensive licensing guidelines, and for related matters, 2022, second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria Act to restrict the activities of the Commission to its regulatory and coordinating functions as it relates to the conduct and operation of Hajj and Umrah in Nigeria, prohibit the use of funds accruing to the Hajj saving schemes, provide for comprehensive licensing guidelines, and for related matters, 2022 second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs for further legislative action to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and legislative and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the National Institute of Information and Communication Technology of Lombabiri, Bayelsa State Establishment Bill 2022. The distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this great chamber on Wednesday, 6 April 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Degi Eremi Nyo Biao Barakuma to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Degi Eremi Nyo Biao Barakuma. Bayelsa East.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Biao Barakuma Degi Eremi Nyo. I represent Bayelsa East Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it gives me satisfaction and joy to lead the debate on this bill for the establishment of the National Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Obolomamri. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 6 April 2022. The Institute, when established, will carry out scientific and applied research in the area of modern information technology application to optimize processes and decision support systems, and also provide dynamic learning infrastructure with quality education through rigorous teaching and research methodologies in information and communication technologies. The Institute will provide academic programs with quality curricular focus to forge professionals, experts, and scholars in the field of information technology, communication, electronics, software engineering, and telemedicine. Furthermore, the Institute will aim at fostering such values amongst its academia, undergraduates and graduate scholars, and ensuring a place of pride for our teeming youths in the world of learning. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill further seeks to provide platforms of modeling, design, and control of processes and systems, create single and multi-objective optimization models, group decision-making models, desktop and web-based software systems for information processing, optimization and decision support. It will enable for research and studies to enhance modeling and optimization of automobile breakthroughs, renewable energy sources, and for night vision devices. Technology is extremely important in the workplace as a means of communication. Today, businesses rely on it heavily. Technology allows many businesses to expand more quickly by having the proper means to promote. It is trending now that all businesses have social network websites that would enable service delivery and giving updates to their customers. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is in view of the foregoing that this bill, which seeks for an act to establish an institute of information and communication technology to, among other things, one, to provide full-time and part-time courses in information and communication technology, engineering technology, applied sciences, management sciences, and other fields of study, leading to the award of ordinary national diploma, higher national diploma, and certificates in specialized programs, to provide facilities and encourage research in all its area of focus to aid the development of Nigeria in the areas of industry, commerce, technology, and engineering, etc. To arrange conferences, seminars, and study groups relevant to the fields of learning specified in subsection 1A in this section, and to perform such other functions which, in the opinion of the Institute, may serve to promote its objectives. ICT is the trending best practice in the world over, and an institute specially designated for this purpose should be a welcome development. In line with Order 76.3 of the Senate Standing Order 2015 as amended, a compendium of financial implication of the establishment of the institute is hereby attached. Mr. President, distinguished senators, I solicit your support for the second reading of this bill. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa.
My name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. I stand to support this bill wholeheartedly because Nigeria is seriously lacking in the areas of information technology, and that is the in thing today. Everywhere, all the economies in the world are transforming and are taking cues by advancing technology in every spheres of the economic activities. If you look at stock exchange today, it's virtually going technology. It's IT driven. So we cannot be left behind. And I believe that for this country to develop our economy the way other advanced economies have been, we must embrace technology. We must give our young Nigerians, our youths, that opportunity to be able to catch up with those that have gone ahead. So I believe that creating Institute of Information Technology all across this country will help in that aspect. I believe that the Federal Ministry of Education as well should be made to include IT in all the curriculum of our schools, starting from secondary school to the tertiary institutions. Because there is no way, anything you are studying today, you must have a bit of knowledge in IT. As such, creating such an institution in this country is desirable. Thank you, Mr. President.
Those who heard that this will be now read the second time, say aye. Those against saying it, say Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of the Institute of Information and Communication Technology, Ogbulumabiri, Bayelsa State, and for other matters connected therewith, 2022, second reading.
A bill for an act to provide for the establishment of information and communication technology, Ogbulumabiri, Bayelsa State, and for other matters connected therewith, 2022, second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on ICT and Cyber Security for further legislative action to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this great chamber on Tuesday, 15 February 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Issa Jibrin.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, please permit me to lead debate on this very important bill seeking to repeal the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015 and enact an act to eliminate violence in private and public life, prohibit all forms of violence against persons, and to provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims and punishment of offenders and for related matters. This bill was read for the first time on Tuesday, 1st February 2022. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, due to the far-reaching nature of this bill, let me crave your indulgence to extensively highlight the background, which I believe will not only provide a proper context for this legislative initiative, but also motivate the National Assembly to accelerate the legislative process in enacting this bill. Background. This act was enacted in 2015 against the backdrop of the rising cases of violence, especially domestic violence against women. The initial bill sought protection for women from male domination violence. In the face of opposition to its obvious gender-biased nature, the promoters renamed it, tinkered with some of its provisions, introduced seemingly gender-neutral language, and successfully obtained its passage. Its explanatory memorandum states that it prohibits all forms of violence against persons in private and public life and provides protection and remedies for victims and punishment of offenders. Upon close scrutiny of the Act, it becomes obvious that it contains prohibitions that are inimical to the realization of its objectives. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, going through the provisions of the Act, it is obvious that it is plagued by substantial and drafting challenges. This underscores the necessity for a holistic reform of the Act to bring the provisions in line with the realities of societal change and drafting standards to effective dispensation of justice. Some of the major areas of concern in the Act are highlighted below. There are several strict liability offenses in the Act. These are instances where mental element is not needed. There are instances where mental element is not needed, but only the physical element, which is all required to complete the offense. This therefore calls for a review to introduce elements of intention. The punishments of fine and imprisonment in the Act have become infinitesimal to have meaningful deterrent effect. This is particularly so in view of the current economic realities in Nigeria. In Section 1 of the Act, the offense of rape needs particular attention. There is a need to make a distinction between absence of consent and consent obtained by fraud, undue influence, and other unlawful means. The Act contains inadequate provisions for compensation of the victims of violence. The penal focus is on fines and imprisonment, with little on compensation. In addition to the punishments, it is better by way of reparation for victims to make adequate provisions relating to compensation. The grievous nature of certain offenses in the Act, especially Section 22(1), makes the punishment provided inadequate. In view of the rampant cases of chemical attacks, such as acids and other substances, offenders under this section should not be given an option of fine. Similarly, the term of imprisonment needs an upward review. Section 27 of the Act, which vests jurisdiction in the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, creates crisis of interpretation. Under the provision, the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory needs to be empowered by an Act of Parliament to exercise jurisdiction. This is certainly not the legislative intent therein. Consequently, the component requiring empowerment by an Act of Parliament is unnecessary. There are instances of derogatory expressions in the Act. An example is mentally retarded, used in Section 28(4). This needs to be replaced with a subtle legislative language. There are many cases of wrong cross-referencing in the Act. The implication is that the operators of the Act run into difficulties when it comes to implementation. This opens a floodgate of litigation which can be avoided by legislative option. The use of the term shall and may in some sections of the Act do not convey legislative intent. Those terms are used haphazardly without due consideration of their outcomes. For example, in Section 33(1), it is provided that whenever a court issues a protection order, the court shall make an order, A, authorizing the issue of a warrant for the arrest of the respondent in the prescribed form, and B, suspending the execution of such warrant subject to compliance with any provision, condition, obligation, or order imposed under Section 331 of this Act. The implication of the use of shall is a mandatory effect, which could not have been the legislative intent. The word may is more appropriate in the circumstance. In Section 34, a strange commissioner is introduced for the purpose of making an application for variation or setting aside of a protection order. This reduces the provision with confusion, as commissioner does not appear anywhere before and after this section. Besides, commissioner is not defined in the interpretation section. The Act makes reference to legislations that are already repealed. An example is Section 40, which makes reference to the Companies and Allied Matters Act 1990. The current law is Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020. Conclusion. Mr. President, my highly distinguished colleagues, this Act is notable for its innovation towards addressing violence in all ramifications. However, the several challenges and inadequacies inherent in it call for urgent legislation action to reposition the legislation for efficiency. A major innovation in this bill is the creation of Victim Support Fund to cater for victims of violence and further provide for composition, funding, and management of the fund. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is because almost all sections of the Act are affected that the bill seeks to repeal and reenact the legislation to avoid making the legislative proposal clumsy, I therefore call on you to give full support to this bill in order to achieve the laudable objectives of the legislation. I thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Bima Mohammed Enagi, Niger South.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly respected, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Bima Mohammed Enagi. I represent the people of Niger South from Niger State. I rise to second that the bill be read the second time. In supporting the second reading of this bill, the reasons are quite obvious. You all know that there is rising cases of violence in this country. In the homes, in schools, in markets, everywhere, there are rising cases of violence in this country. So the law has to be made in such a way to meet up with such violent situations. In this country, there are cases where people, through violence, become permanently disabled. So we must have adequate provisions to take care of such situations. From what the sponsor of this bill had said, it is very clear that the existing Act 2015 has drafting problems, has problems of cross-references, and also has problems of inadequate provision for certain types of violence in this country. Therefore, I stand here today to second that this bill be read the second time, and I appeal to everybody to support its reading second time. Thank you.
Those who vote that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015 and enact the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Bill 2022 to eliminate violence in private and public life, prohibit all forms of violence against persons, and to provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims and punishment of offenders, and for related matters 2022, second reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015 and enact the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Bill 2022 to eliminate violence in private and public life, prohibit all forms of violence against persons, and provide maximum protection and effective remedies for victims and punishment of offenders, and for related matters 2022 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters for further legislative action to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of Federal Universities of Technology Act Cap F23, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 2nd March 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Mohammed Bima Enagi to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Bima Mohammed Enagi, Niger South.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly respected, distinguished colleagues. My name remains Senator Bima Mohammed Enagi. I represent the people of Niger South from Niger State. I stand to lead the debate on Federal University of Technology Act Amendment Bill 2022, SB 948. Mr. President, please permit me to proceed and lead the debate.
You may proceed.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me use this singular honor to express my sincere appreciation to the Senate and particularly the President for the permission to lead the debate on Federal Universities of Technology Act Amendment Bill 2022. The bill seeks to strengthen the Federal Universities of Technology in the provision of research services and specialized training in entrepreneurship and management technology. The bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 2nd March 2022. Background. The Federal Universities of Technology have been established by single legislation as far back as 1983. The legislation was consolidated as Cap F23, Laws of the Federation 2004. The objective for the establishment
is to give effect to the nation's drive for much-needed self-reliance in science, engineering, and technology. They are specialized universities with the primary goal of production, technology, and application of knowledge and skills towards creating the physical hardware for production, exchange, distribution, and consumption. The development of federal universities of technology was the work of an educational team of experts that was set up in 1978 by the federal government of Nigeria as a committee under the National Universities Commission. The committee recommended that there is need to establish federal universities of technology for the following reasons. A, to train people for the modern science, scientific, and technical education. B, to meet the rate of growth in science student population. C, to produce the manpower skills that will lead the country into economic and social development. D, to establish universities in the north, west, and eastern part of the country to balance the geographical spread of the institution. And E, to assure that the technical training is parallel with the pattern of technological training in the United States of America universities, and that the federal universities of technology should have specialized link with the United States universities. Thus, in 1980, 1981, and 1983, the federal government of Nigeria established the federal universities of technology at Owerri, Akure, and Minna to train the diverse personnel required for the economic, technological, educational, and social development of the country. The university's primary purposes were to produce graduates in science subjects and to serve as national institutions for technological research. The objectives of the federal universities of technology in Nigeria include, but not limited to, the following. 1, to develop and offer academic and professional programs leading to the first degrees, postgraduate degrees, research and higher degrees, which emphasize planning, adaptive, technical, maintenance, developmental, and productive skills in the engineering, scientific, and agricultural disciplines. 2, to identify technological problems and needs of the society, and to find solutions to them within the context of overall national development. 3, to provide and promote sound basic scientific training as a foundation for the development of technology and applied sciences in needs of national development. 4, to offer to the general population as a forum of public service the results of training and research, and to foster the practical application of these results. 6, to establish appropriate relationship with other national institutions involved in training, research, and development of technologies. And 7, to undertake any other activities appropriate for a university of technology of the highest standard. Notwithstanding the foregoing laudable objectives, it is baffling to note that the federal universities of technology are facing challenges of inadequate funding. The paucity of funds have compelled most of such universities to operate without strategic scientific technological centers, such as industrial development centers. The federal universities of technology in Nigeria, unlike their counterparts in India and United States, do not enjoy any special grants. The funding model for disabling effects on the funding model has a disabling effect on the growth and development of the universities of technology because of the capital-intensive nature of science and technology programs. While the conventional universities offer 40-60% ratio of theory to practical-based curriculums, the federal universities of technology are supposed to offer 60-50% theory and practicals, requiring more capital funding for equipment and consumables. Similarly, the scope and content of their curriculum do not accommodate management technology and entrepreneurship, which are necessarily needed to address high rate of unemployment and over-reliance on white-collar jobs in this country. Against this background, the Federal Universities of Technology Act is proposed for amendment to address the challenge of underfunding and limited scope of curriculum to strengthen the universities for optimal service delivery. Objectives of the bill. The bill seeks to, 1, amend the Federal Universities of Technology Act, CAP F23, Laws of the Federation 2004, to expand the scope of their curriculum to accommodate teaching of management technology and entrepreneurship and address emerging socio-economic challenges in Nigeria. 2, to expand the scope of funding for the universities through the establishment of a special fund to be administered by the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology to support conduct of research and innovation. And lastly, to strengthen the universities towards effective discharge of their statutory mandate. Conclusion, Mr. President, my highly respected distinguished colleagues, I have considered it expedient to solicit your support for the expeditious passage of this bill into law. I thank you immensely for your kind attention. Thank you.
Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Muhammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. I stand to also support this bill for the passage because there is no way we can get out of the economic and security dilemma that we are in this country without seriously embracing technology. And so doing, our institutions must be expanded too, to be diversified to cover other areas that we lacked those manpower, especially when you're talking about science and technology, where it's just limited to certain curriculums or certain kind of professions. In a country where there are so many people with so many talents, but lacking to get admission, especially like in Federal University of Technology, Minam, where you see quite a number of our youths seeking admission and they cannot get the admission because they are not able to meet certain criteria of the courses that that university do. So in so doing, I believe that this bill is very important at this moment so that the curriculum of these universities will be expanded. And those courses that we need, those areas that we need to close up those gaps are now introduced to these universities. And in so doing, so many of our youths will get the admission, so many of our youths will be trained and qualified to at least cover those gaps, those areas that we have gaps in, especially in agriculture, even in the economy, because economy today also requires technology, because I just spoke about IT in my last contribution. So I support this bill, and I believe that my colleagues will also do the same. Thank you, Mr. President.
Those who feel that this will be now read the second time, say aye. Those against saying it, I say. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Technology Act, CAP F23, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for other matters connected here with 2022. Second reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Federal Universities of Technology Act, CAP F23, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and for other matters connected there with 2022. Second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Debt Fund for further legislative action to report by within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the representation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 Amendment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Wednesday, 19th May 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Michael Opeyemi Bamidele. I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I stand to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 Amendment Bill 2022, SB 662. Mr. President, I so move.
Distinguished Senator Okejev, the new leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okejev, I represent Benue Northwest. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by the Chairman, Judiciary, Human Rights, and Legal Matters.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, and Legal Matters on the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013, Amendment Bill 2022, say aye. Those against, say nay. Mr. Chairman, you may lead the report, please. Chairman, you may present the report. You may give us an abridged version.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, and Legal Matters on a bill for an act to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 and for other matters connected thereto, SB 662. The Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 Amendment Bill 2021 was sponsored by Senator Ezinwa F. Onyewuchi, representing Imo East Senatorial District. The bill was read for the first time on Wednesday, 10th March 2021. On Wednesday, 19th May 2021, the Senate at its plenary sitting deliberated on the general principles of the bill, and after extensive deliberation, the bill was read for the second time and referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary and to report back with its recommendations. Mr. President, I will be jumping to our observations and findings as stated on page 5 therefrom. Flowing from the submissions and presentations made by stakeholders and the general public on this proposed legislation, and having analyzed same in our subsequent markup sessions on the bill, the committee hereby makes the following observations and findings. 1, that the stakeholders and members of the public that submitted memoranda, as well as those that made oral presentations at the public hearing, supported the passage of the bill in view of its strategic importance to all national efforts geared towards the fight against terrorism in Nigeria. 2, that the committee, in the course of its deliberations, consulted widely and carried out an in-depth analysis of the submissions and reflected them in the bill. 3, that in the memoranda presented to the committee, a plethora of issues relating to the subject matter of terrorism and terrorism financing in line with global best practices were raised. It is our decision to include these in the bill so as to save time and resources, which would be wasted if we resolve to piecemeal amendment of the extant legislation. 4, that the proposed amendment, no doubt, will set standards and regulatory system intended to prevent terrorist groups from laundering money through the banking system and other financial networks. 5, that having policies in place to combat financing of terrorism will surely reduce or eliminate privacy and anonymity in financial and other sundry transactions as it relates to the subject in our society. 6, that the need to comprehensively review the Terrorism Prevention Act arose from the unfavorable ratings of Financial Act Task Force recommendations of Nigeria's Mutual Evaluation Report and consequent placement of Nigeria in FACT's International Cooperation and Review Group process with its impending sanctions on Nigeria's economy. 7, that the National Task Force on Improving Nigeria's Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism regime in Nigeria proposed improvement on the Act in order to address the deficiencies noted in the provisions of the Act so as to align with the required standard as obtainable in other jurisdictions. 8, that the proposed repeal and enactment bill is geared towards improving the effectiveness of countermeasures against terrorism, terrorism financing, and proliferation financing. 9, that the repeal is aimed at providing adequate framework for improved international collaboration, interagency cooperation, and freezing of terrorist funds and assets. And 10, that the passage of this bill will save Nigeria from being included among countries in the Financial Action Task Force grey list with its attendant negative consequences, which might ultimately result to international sanctions that would affect the image of the country within the Committee of Nations. Our recommendation: the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, to which this bill was referred, having favorably considered same, recommends as follows: that the Senate do consider and pass the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2022 SB 662. Mr. President, we finally wish to use this opportunity to thank the President of the Senate and our distinguished colleagues for the opportunity to serve in the capacity and to respectfully commend the passage of the bill to the Senate. Mr. President, I so submit.
If no comments, Leader, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this Senate resolves in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I second the motion as a...
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider the report clause by clause, say aye. Those against, say nay, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this is a very sensitive and important bill. I want us to be very meticulous and very careful. So I'll be a little bit slow. Those who are at clause 1, clause 2 on page 2, and clause 3, national coordination and enforcement, role of the Attorney General, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 4 is on page 6, role of the National Security Advisor. Those who are at clause 4, clause 5, role of law enforcement and security agencies. Clause 6, establishment of the National Counter-Terrorism Center on page 9. Clause 7, appointment of national coordinator for the center on page 10. And clause 8, other staff of the center and funding on page 11. Now those clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 9 is on page 11. Constitution of the Nigeria Sanctions Committee. Those who are at clause 9, clause 10, clause 11, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, and clause 15, provision of training and instruction to terrorist groups or terrorists on page 16, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 16 is on page 16, concealing of information about acts of terrorism. Those who are at clause 16, clause 17, clause 18, clause 19, and clause 20 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 21 is on page 18, financing of terrorism. Those who are at clause 21, clause 22, clause 23, dealing in terrorist property, clause 24, hostage taking, kidnapping, hijacking on page 21, clause 25, clause 26, clause 27, clause 28, clause 29, and clause 30 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 31 is on page 25, tampering with evidence or witness. Those who are at clause 31, clause 32, clause 33 on page 26, clause 34, clause 35, clause 36, offenses against safety at airports, serving military or civil aviation, clause 37, clause 38, clause 39, and clause 40 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who are at clause 41 on page 32 of the report. Clause 42, offenses with explosives or other lethal devices. Clause 43, clause 44, clause 45, clause 46, clause 47, clause 48, clause 49, and clause 50 on page 39, Nigeria sanctions list. Stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 51 is on page 40. Those who are at clause 51, clause 52, clause 53, clause 54, clause 55 on page 42, clause 56, clause 57, Clause 58, Clause 59, Clause 60 on page 49, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 61 is on page 49, freezing obligation in respect of proliferation financing. Those who are at clause 61, clause 62, clause 63, clause 64, investigation and search without warrant. On page 54, clause 65, clause 66, clause 67, clause 68, clause 69, and clause 70, video recording and custody of records. On page 60, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 71 is on page 61, evidence by certificate. Those who are at clause 71, clause 72, clause 73, protection of persons and witnesses, clause 74, clause 75, clause 76, clause 77, clause 78, disclosure of assets and property by an arrested person. On page 66, clause 79, seizure of fund or property, and clause 80 on page 68, order of the court relating to seized property. Stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 81, freezing order on banks or other financial institutions. On page 70, those who are at clause 81, clause 82, clause 83, clause 84, obligation to report suspicious transactions, clause 85, clause 86, on page 75, clause 87, evidence pursuant to a request, clause 88, clause 89, and clause 90 on page 79. Stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 91, Special Victims Trust Fund, Establishment Victims Trust Fund, on page 80. Those who are at clause 91, clause 92, Establishment of the Special Victims Trust Fund Committee, clause 93, clause 94, clause 95, clause 96, clause 97, and clause 98. Stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the interpretation on page 87, stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the short title on page 105, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the schedules 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the explanatory memorandum on page 114 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those who are at the long title on page 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that the chair reports progress. So move.
The minority leader.
I rise to second the motion as ably moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverse the plenary for the charity report progress, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013, Amendment Bill 2022, and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, Clause 1 to 98 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules 1, 2, and 3 as recommended, the explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this bill be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion Assembly move. I so second.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 and for other matters connected to 2022, third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 and for other matters connected thereto 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Well, congratulations to the Senate for passing this very, very important bill on terrorism, and it is our belief here in the Senate that this bill, by the time signed into an act by Mr. President, will enhance the efforts of this government in the fight against terrorism, kidnapping, and other associated and related vices. This is one bill, one piece of legislation that can turn around not only the security situation in Nigeria, but even the economic fortunes of our country. We have done so much as a government in terms of infrastructural development across the country, in all parts of this country, but because the security situation is not the kind of situation that we all want, this tends to overshadow most of these tremendous and remarkable and massive developments in our country. I believe that the executive will waste no time in signing this bill into law, and it is our hope that this additional piece of legislation will achieve the purpose for which it has been worked upon by the Senate and indeed the National Assembly, and for the reason that it will also be signed by Mr. President. But let me make it very clear here that the fight against any insecurity, whether it is kidnapping, terrorism, or whatsoever, is not the sole purpose or the sole role of a government. The contribution, the support by citizens is essential because our security agencies need vital and critical information to fight against terrorism and kidnapping and other things that makes life difficult for us. And the security agencies, we believe, are trying their best, but they need to do more. They need to achieve better. And any information is vital, and the security agencies must use information given to them whether by citizens or by sister security agencies. With this, once again, I want to congratulate the Senate for this very important piece of legislation, once again, in support of a very important problem that bedevils our country. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is a motion. Standing in the name of our distinguished Senator Biobara Kuma Dege Eremienyo on the need to establish the National Museum at the Akasa Slave Trade Center in Bayelsa State to preserve national heritage. Mr. President, you are going to invite distinguished Senator Dege Eremienyo Biobara Kuma to move the motion.
Very distinguished Senator Dege Eremienyo Biobara Kuma, Bayelsa East.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the very proficient way and manner you always pronounce my native names. Mr. President, I am Senator Dege Eremienyo. I represent Bayelsa East Senatorial District. This is a motion on the need to establish National Museum at the Akasa Slave Trade Center in Bayelsa State to preserve national heritage. The Senate notes that Akasa is a settlement at the southernmost tip of Nigeria in Bayelsa State, where the Non-River estuary meets the Atlantic Ocean, with a lighthouse of 90 meters high navigational facility that had stood since 1910. Further notes that due to the proximity of Akasa to the Atlantic, the settlement has always been a traditional trading site in Nigeria, especially in the business of palm oil trade during the colonial era. Senate notes again that before the abolition of the slave trade, it was one of the major centers in the country where the harrowing effects of transatlantic slave trade resonates till this day. And during the British colonial years, it was the site of an outpost of the Royal Niger Company. Recalls that the Akasa settlement in the 17th century, now a sprouting town, was where the Nembe people in today's Bayelsa State waged a war valiantly against the British in 1895 with 22 war canoes and 1,500 foot soldiers, due to the high-handedness of the Royal Niger Company and the obnoxious taxes imposed on the local people by the company. Senate notes, interestingly, that in the year 1899, the charter of the Royal Niger Company was revoked, and an act seen as partly a consequence of the war, with the effect that from 1st January 1900, the company sold all its possessions and concessions in Africa to the British government for £865,000. Senate is aware that some of the relics of the slave trade, such as slave house, slave masters, administrative block and quarters, slave jetty, slave transit tunnel, white men graveyard, and what have you, can still be found, even though erosion of past decades had eroded some of the antiquities. And Senate observes that with the current efforts made by the government to diversify our economy, the Akasa town is a veritable historical heritage center, which will boost our tourism potentials and consequently earn us foreign exchange if its heritage is well preserved. Senate accordingly resolves to urge the National Commission for Museums and Monuments to recognize the Akasa Slave Trade Center and establish it as a National Slave Trade Museum in Bayelsa State. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I thank you for this privilege.
Distinguished Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar, Kwara North.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar
I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North, and we all are. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that there is need to establish National Museum at the Akasa Slave Center in Bayelsa State to preserve national heritage. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, like the mover of the motion rightly said, we've been paying lip service to diversification of our economies, and this is one of the greatest opportunities we do have to attract tourists to bring in hard dollars to our country. Mr. President, I do know that there are small countries around the world, including African countries, where simple monuments, simple historical sites attract foreigners all over the world to come and observe. We have wonderful places in Nigeria, and this is just one of them. I therefore urge us all, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, to support this motion so that we can make sure we have this site a place for foreigners to come and observe the beauty and what we have in our country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, let's go to the prayers. And there is only one prayer. Direct the National Commission for Museum and Monuments to recognize the Akasa Slave Trade Center and establish it as a National Slave Trade Museum in Bayelsa State. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate, please stand down the other items.
Yes. Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, given the exigencies of time having come this far and the fact that we have already come close to our statutory time of closure, I rise to move that we step down consideration of all other outstanding items on this agenda to another legislative day. So move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Senate Leader. I so second.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion moved by the Leader, seconded by the Minority Whip, or Minority Leader, sorry, that we stand down the consideration of the remaining items on the order paper till another legislative day. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate, adjournment.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this Senate do adjourn for our Salah break until the day of 10th May, Tuesday, 10th May 2022 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Distinguished colleagues, we are adjourning for our Salah break, but in between the May Day will also be celebrated, the Labor Day, 1st May, and it's our opportunity here as a Senate to congratulate the Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC and other associated bodies, and indeed all workers of Nigeria for standing to work hard for the development of our country, but we're asking them to do more and better. As a government, we will continue as an institution, as a Senate, as a National Assembly or Parliament, we will continue to support our workforce. Our manpower is of immense importance to us in our development, and therefore we will continue to be very mindful, very supportive of our workers across the country. But to whom much is given, much will be expected. And this is a partnership between each and every one of us in this country. We play our different but very important roles in building our country. With this I will put the question that those in favor of adjournment till the 10th of May, and that will be the Tuesday, 2022 at 10 a.m. prompt for us to celebrate with our families and other Nigerians the Eid Day and the Nigerian and the Labor Day or Workers' Day. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We also wish our colleagues who have picked their forms, either running for the presidency, for the governorship, or for the Senate or House of Representatives on the opposite side, the best of luck. The DSP is already right inside the truck. We wish the DSP the best of outing and very successful contest by the grace of God. This Senate, once again, is adjourned until the 10th day of May. That's a Tuesday, 2022 at 10 a.m. prompt. Thank you.